it was kind of like a confirmation into something that I've been facing the past few weeks. And I was really grateful to hear it because I needed it. But, our family's been going through some different changes and stuff. And they're not permanent, they're just temporary. But Javier ended up having to go to Tennessee for work for a little bit. I'm not sure how long he'll be gone for. But that opened the door for the enemy to start trying to pray against me on things that I have overcame. And those things are insecurity, anxiety, worry, stress, fear, because it's a place that he and I both have grown a lot in. But when we're together, it's a lot easier to feel secure and to feel like I can trust him because there's a certain type of control that I feel whenever we're together. But whenever we're apart, I feel like there's this, and it really is, it's my own insecurities. And I have fought so hard to stay grounded and to not let that anxiety come between me and how I feel about my husband, or I guess how I think about him. Because it's not really how I feel, it's about what I think. And what I really want to get across to you guys is what Mark Marshall said yesterday, is that the only one that can help you is really you. It is our choice. It is our discipline in what we allow ourselves to think. Just because we feel a certain way doesn't mean that we have to let it take over. And that was something like, I'm very proud of myself, because that was a place that I didn't used to be able to overcome. I would always succumb to it, and I would have to voice my fears and voice my insecurities, and really made it about him and less about me. And Javier, he's done such a great job, and there's nothing that he's not doing right that would make me be insecure. It's my own insecurity, my own fears, my own worries because of what I've experienced before. And to recognize that within myself, and for you guys to recognize those things within yourself when you're feeling those kind of ways, it's really important to evaluate, why am I really feeling this way? Do you have anything to add to that? Okay. I'll warn you, like Okay, are you sure? All right, I'm locked and loaded. All right, okay, all right. So some more things that the Holy Spirit's been working on me through the last month or so is really seeing him in my testimony. And I've come to you guys and I've been very real about my life and what I've been through. And I love where Mark Marshall opened up yesterday by saying it's time to get really real. And when I first started really trying to heal, God gave me a desire. And the desire was to start telling my story. And whenever I started, it was so incredibly difficult because of the hurt that I had yet to face. And the desire that he gave me was to really start writing. I've shared that with some of you. And whenever it came to writing my story, it really took me, at first it took me to a really dark place within myself emotionally, because it was stuff that, it was really hard. It was really hard to accept the truth that it happened. It was really hard to allow myself to feel that again, because I was already so broken. And what it did was made me realize that I was more broken than I really thought. And so at the same time, the enemy was coming against my relationship with my husband. And all at the same time, like I was fighting, pretty much what I did was I was able to put myself on the back burner and focus on all of our issues that we had instead of trying to heal myself. And there came a time whenever all of this over here became too much because I already had so much that I was dealing with mentally, emotionally. This over here, it was just too much. And whatever I was doing and trying, it wasn't working. And I wore out. I mentally, emotionally, like I wore out. I couldn't do it anymore. So I split. I went where I felt safe, and I'm so grateful that I did that because what the enemy means for evil, God is going to turn it for good. And in the moment, it doesn't ever feel good. It doesn't feel like God. But it was. And now I'm starting to look back and see how God was working in the midst of all of the things that the enemy was doing at that specific time. And I want to get really real, and I hate this because it sucks, but it's needed. Something that the Holy Spirit brought back to me was, hold on. It was something that I carried and walked with shame for a very long time. A lot of you know my story. I was molested as a child by my stepdad, and eventually my stepbrother came into play also. But with my stepfather, it started when I was really young. I was about 6 years old. And I grew to, I'm just going to say it, and no matter how weird it sounds, I know God will bring it together. I grew to like it. I grew to love him in that way because that's what grooming does. And as I got a little bit older, I was probably 11 years old, for the first time, I went to him for what he took from me. I went to him for it. And for a long time, it made me feel disgusting. I was very confused with shame. And, but now I look back at that moment, and I remember what I felt in that moment. I felt fear come over him. I can remember the beat in his chest. I could hear it. Oh, thank you. I'm trying my best not to let it happen. We'll do that after. And it made me very confused. I was so confused. That was the first time I ever experienced rejection. Whether it was right, whether it was wrong, I experienced it. And it made me really confused that why is it okay for someone to come to me for something that now I'm coming to you and you tell me no? I didn't understand. I was 11. How could I? And then it was a few days later after that situation happened, I caught him with one of my mom's best friends. And something just clicked, and it made me angry. It made me like an angry, jealous kind of anger. And what it did was drove me to, for the first time, open my mouth to my mom about that situation. It wasn't about me, it was about him with this other woman. Because I was so angry, I thought that what we had was special. I thought that, oh God, this sounds so wrong talking about. And what I thought for so long was the enemy was really God opening the door for what happened in the dark to come to light. Did it feel good? No. I didn't see the good in it until years later. And I'm talking like 20-something years later. Now I'm looking back and I'm seeing God in the whole situation. I'm so grateful that I can see that now because for a long time I couldn't. So fast forward to several years later. I'm in my, probably started about 29. I really wanted to heal. And it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to heal. I wanted to be able to help other people. And I didn't know that by helping other people, I would find healing. So I started writing my story. And when it would get to those places where I felt shame or disgust or whatever it was, I would shut down because it was too much. It was too much. And I wasn't even having to tell anybody. It was me that was having to be real with myself. And it took me to, I'll tell you, man, whenever you're reaching out to God in a situation that's too dark for you, He'll come through. He'll come through. And the way He did it for me was through the visions that He started giving me. I had to see it because I was so blind by hurt, by trauma, by rejection, betrayal, twisted love. I was so blind, I couldn't see anything else. When I woke up at night, I was tormented. Woke up in the morning, it was torment, constantly replaying what happened. It wasn't all the stuff from after that point, it was from the very beginning. I was tormented by it. I was ashamed. I was disgusted with myself. I hated myself. I blamed myself. But now I look back at that little girl and I look at her with grace and compassion and love and understanding. I was just a little girl. How could I be anything but that to her? You still good? I started having these visions, and the very first one that I had was whenever me and Javier separated for the first time. And I felt so alone and afraid. And I didn't know what to really do. I didn't know what my next move was really going to be. And I drew a picture. Oh, one day I will show you guys, but I drew a picture of myself. It was just my face. It's like a little kid art, nothing professional. But it meant so much. And it was just my face. I had tears, and I had shaded out like the bottom part of my eyes just to show like how sad and depressed I really was. But what really spoke volumes to myself was the mouth that I had blurred. And for a long time, I didn't understand my own feelings. I didn't know how to express them. I didn't even know how to process them for myself. So that right there was the step for me to look at that and understand, what does that really mean for me? I no longer had a voice. That was how I felt. I felt like I had no voice. I felt like there was no safe place for me to talk about the things that I held inside. Was that true? Not necessarily. But for me, I didn't feel safe. I didn't trust anyone. I didn't trust anyone with what I held inside because of the past where I tried to talk about it and somehow it was thrown back at me like somehow it was twisted into a way that only layered on the guilt that I felt. And in that vision that I had, In the first vision that I had, I look back at it a lot because it just keeps speaking. It's always a different word that it gives. And I'm so grateful that the Holy Spirit has given me that. But I remember in that vision seeing this big dark cloud behind me, and I am so afraid of it. I'm so terrified. I see my face, I'm looking over my shoulder, and I'm running while looking behind me, and tears are just running down my face. You can feel it. And whenever I see what's in front of me, I see Jesus with his arms wide open. And what that meant to me now, I look back and I see the deeper meaning to it was a warning for the darkness that I was fixing to go through. But it was also an encouragement that whatever you're fixing to go through, keep coming to me. Keep coming to me. So I go back to Javier, and I'm thankful that I did. I'm thankful that I did, but then it didn't make sense. But I did go back, and we were fine. Things, worked out the way that they did, and again, spiraled. Completely spiraled, both of us. And but what it did was it took me back to a place where I don't even know. I don't want to say it like that. To the more important things. It took me back to a place where I was able to focus more on that desire that I had. Because we find comfort in chaos whenever that's all we know. But what I did different this time was I went back and I started working on me. And I kept trying to write that book. I kept trying to write my story. And every time it came to an end, I would just sit there and cry and cry and cry and cry because there was no breakthrough. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. You know why? Because all I could see was dark. There was no God in my thoughts, in my spirit, and what I was fighting. But I kept trying. I kept trying. I kept trying. Until I just couldn't. Emotionally, I can't. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been there where you just can't anymore. You've tried all that you can try, and there's no breakthrough. Me and Javi, we ended up moving back to Kansas. I was originally from Kansas. We moved back here, and life looks like it's going good, and then something happens, and we spiral. And I went to the doctor and was told that I needed to have immediate surgery, or else what I had was going to develop into a cancer that I can't reverse. And that moment, I'll tell you, that next morning was the first time that I really laid it all down to God. I got real. And I made a promise. And I have always been one that when I promise, I hold it. But I never made a real promise to God before. And I told him, I was like, God, man, I'm sorry. I felt like such a failure because here I had held to the promise that he was going to use my life as a testimony, and I have done nothing with it. And I told him that I would do whatever it was going to take to make it happen. I begged him not to let this cancer develop. I begged him not to let it take me out of this world. I was sad because I felt like I haven't done anything right by my children. What are my children going to get out of my life? Because they saw the sad part. They saw that kind of mama. I wanted to be different for them and for God. And so I got through that, and praise God, I'm cancer-free. There's nothing that I need to worry about. Yeah, very grateful. And I thought at the time that that was the enemy, and maybe it was, but God turned it for the better because it gave me a different kind of focus. It gave me a different kind of fire, a different kind of fight. And I told myself, no matter what happens, no matter what I have to separate from, no matter what I have to do to get better, I'm going to get better. And it hurt like hell. Because in the process, all I could see is that I was losing somebody that I really love. And I hated it. I fought for 8 years to try and keep it and to make it better. But the only one you can make better is you. And they can follow if they want to. And they will when they want to. But what it did for me was to help me to really focus on the healing that I needed. And it was deep. I'm sure you guys can track with me there. It runs deep, especially when it happened so long ago. So then we end up while going through that process, like calling on to God, he gave me exactly what I needed, and it was to see. It was to see. And by my obedience in doing what I saw to do, it helped me to get just one step further into the process. And I remember seeing myself standing under this tree. I was actually literally standing under a tree swinging Silas. He's a baby. And the Holy Spirit, we were really going through it, man. We were really going through it. And I remember the Holy Spirit telling me to back up away from the tree. So I backed up as far as I could from the tree where I could see the entire thing. And just looking at it, like I've always been drawn to nature, but I noticed the tree and just how beautiful it was. I'm standing far off from the tree. I can see the entire thing. It's so full. Its colors are vibrant. And then I get the nudge to just start slowly walking back toward the tree and to pay great attention to what I notice as I start walking closer. And as I start walking closer, I start noticing the imperfections. And when I get right up under the tree, Holy Spirit says, I want you to look up. And whenever you look up under something that looks so perfect from outside, you can see so much of what's broken on the inside. And so what that meant to me was from the outside, you look perfect. I stand strong, I stand tall, I'm vibrant, life is good, and I can make other people feel good whenever they see me. But on the inside, I was extremely broken. And I was so focused on the outside of myself and my appearance because I was a mask that I was trying to hide what was really on the inside. And God said, we're going to go look on the inside. And that's what we're going to start. And there was a time that came, I'll skip over all of it because all of it would take way too much time. It's really good stuff that I wish I could. But at a certain point through the journey, I remember this vision of seeing myself in a dark room, pitch black. Just walls, no windows, no light, nothing, pitch black. And I remember just seeing myself sitting in the corner of this room, just waiting for the light to come. And the thing with that is what Mark Marshall said yesterday, is that you have to be the one to stand up and find your light. And it's so true. That vision that I had, I saw myself stand up in that. And I started going crazy, like what I thought looked crazy, just searching everywhere along the walls. I couldn't see a thing, but I was looking for a light switch. And eventually, after I experienced deliverance here, that light came on. That light came on for me. But that journey, like that process, wasn't done. It wasn't done. I still had to go through some things to become really free. And last year around Easter, actually it was on Easter morning, I stood up here and I gave a little, I don't know what you want to call it, but I spoke about a vision that the Lord had given me. And it was, I know some of you remember it, but it was a bird cage. And this raven was trapped inside this cage. And on the inside of the cage is darkness. But the difference with this kind of darkness was I was able to see outside of the cage, and that out there was freedom. I could see light. I could see freedom. But yet here I am stuck in this one. It was a mental prison that I had built for myself. And I remember seeing this bird stand up in the midst of it, and she walks to the bars, and she gets so frustrated because she can't break out. She's banging her head against the bars trying to get out, but she can't break free. So what does she do? She backs up into the cage and she sits down in defeat. Because that's what we do, right? We go back, we give up. And we go back to the same old things because we feel trapped. We feel like we can't make it out. What it meant for me was that there was just more work that I needed to do. The problem is that I was waiting to be rescued instead of rescuing myself. I kept waiting. And I think the thing with the beating my head against the bars is just the frustration that I really felt on the inside. I was so tired of being stuck. And through my situation with Javier, I still loved him, but it gave me that, what do you want to call it? It pushed me to have courage to really fight for myself. It really did. And instead of looking to my own strategy, I remember after I got delivered, I went home that same night and I got down on my hands and knees and I just bawled and asked God. I said, God, I just don't know how. I need strategy. And that's exactly what he started giving, was strategy, because when you look to God for what you need, he's going to give it. It may not look like what you think. It may not come through like you want it to, but it's going to, if you trust it and you do what he's telling you to do, whether it looks like what you think it should or not, he's going to come through. He'll bring you through, I should say. So I started following these different strategies of how to walk through this, to me, this traumatic and toxic situation. And I'm so grateful that I listened. I'm so grateful that the Lord was able to give me what I needed to see. And in that that bird cage, I keep coming back to it. I know God's going to do something deeper with that. But the first thing I had to do was look to the outside and know that I could have it. I could have it. That is possible for me. A hope started rising within me. And then what I had to do was stand up and encourage myself. I had to strengthen myself and be courageous enough to know that what's on the outside, I can get. But what am I going to have to do to get it? It's not through manipulation. It's not through opening the doors and letting somebody in, hoping that they're going to sit there with you until you're better. Because that's what I did a lot. I would open that door to people hoping that was going to be the one. It was going to be the one that was going to save me. It was going to be the one that would eventually stay with me in my mess. But it's not people you need to do it for. That's God. That's God's place. There takes a type of discernment. I want to rephrase that a little bit, because there are some people that God sends you to help you. And there are people that will sit in it with you until you're ready to walk through it. But like he said yesterday, eventually those people, their time runs out with you. You have to get up and you have to start moving. You have to do the hard things. You have to face those difficult things. You have to face the shame. And yes, it's going to get dark for a moment. But keep your focus on the Lord and it will come through. It will. I didn't think I was going to make it out. I really didn't. But I did. And you guys will too. You know, whenever I go back in my own time, I start thinking about my story and stuff, and I'm finding more relation to the Bible whenever I replay it, you know. The scales that he removes from our eyes, that's what he did. He removed trauma. He removed pain. He removed different things that blinded me from being able to see life. And that was all it took, was just being willing to let him. And now, this situation, you know, that I'm in now, no, I want to go back. Coming out of that cage, what really opened the door for me was the forgiveness that I had to do. It wasn't about trying to break down every bar. It wasn't about trying to separate, this happened, I need to work on this one thing. No. The one thing that's going to set you free is that forgiveness. It really is. And it's not just forgiving other people, it's forgiving yourself for the things that you took blame for, forgiving yourself for staying in it for so long, not knowing. And the main thing that I want you guys to understand is that you have to look back at yourself with grace, with compassion, with love, and understanding. Because what you know now isn't necessarily what you knew then.
Can I say something?
Please.
Going along with what she said, I love her analogy of the tree. And how when you look at it from a distance, you see this perfect tree, you know, this beautiful, green, perfect tree. But as you get closer, you see the imperfections. And I've shared this before. You see the imperfections and you see the broken branches. You see the different things. I love to work in cedar. And a cedar tree is pretty by itself, but it's pretty plain too. But you cut it down a cedar tree, and it's not one of the prettier trees there is, but you peel that bark off, and the first thing you see is all the little imperfections where worms have eaten into it and created these holes and all that. You see where something has damaged it and it's healed itself around it and all these imperfections. And then you take that, and I've made shelves and tables, and my fireplace mantle is all huge cedar trees that I've cut, and you polish them up, and the most beautiful part of them is always the imperfections. It's what creates the beauty in them. And it's the same thing with us. God uses our trauma and our pain, if you allow him in the process. He uses it to see what you're seeing is going on in Michaela. What Mark Marshall was talking about yesterday that struck me so much, for one thing, it was Well, no, it's the main thing. I mean, he kept, is this okay? He kept saying, you're created in the image of God. And what that means is, to me, when you look at yourself, you should see God. And I don't mean in a vain, ugly way. You should see that He created you perfect. Absolutely perfect. He carefully stranded every little bit of DNA, every chromosome, every atom that makes you up, perfectly unique to you. And He created you perfect. And then because of trauma and things that happen, okay, I didn't have this organized. To me, what we lost in the garden was our security. Adam and Eve, Adam, mankind, walked in the garden with God, completely unself-conscious, naked, never, oh my God, I'm with God, just completely comfortable in his own skin, their own skin, around the creator of the universe. And then when they chose to disobey God, all of a sudden they became very self-conscious. They noticed their nakedness. They covered themselves up and they hid. Because they lost that security that they had had. They no longer were naive and became self-conscious. I don't know how to explain that, except then they're all of a sudden they're looking at their imperfections. They're looking at the things. And so that's the way we are. We've been running and hiding ever since. We've been running and hiding, trying to cover ourselves up. And what God sees in each and every one of us is that perfect, unique person that He created. He does not see you the way you think about yourself. And the way we think about ourselves is so skewed because we get messed up. And Mark Marshall was talking about it yesterday. We have to learn to think a different way about ourselves. And nothing in your life will change until you do. It is the key. And this is the hardest part. You've got to learn to love yourself. You see, there's very, 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 very few people who even like themselves, let alone love themselves. And so what it does is it makes us surround ourselves with walls because we want to keep people away, because if we get too close, they're going to see our imperfections. They're going to see the things that we think about ourselves as being imperfect. And because we think that way about ourselves, it affects the way we act. It affects every relationship that we have. It affects the way we treat other people. It affects the way we think and perceive other people are treating us. It skews our whole reality because our perceptions are our reality, even when they're 100% wrong. I've spent so much of my life so insecure. And because of that insecurity, somebody could just look at me wrong, and I'm immediately taking it personally. I'm thinking I've been slighted. My pride gets dinged, and it causes me to, or something stupid. You text somebody, something important to you, and you don't hear back from them. You're going, well, they don't care. It's just when you have that low self-esteem, when you have that no security in yourself, when you don't like yourself, you think nobody else can like you too. And it messed me up so bad. It messed me up in the way I treated other people, the way I reacted to the way people were treating me. I've seen a Facebook post one time that's almost perfect. It's about perception. There's this young couple in bed, and the husband's laying in bed, and he's got his back turned to his wife, and he's curled up, and all of his body posture is, like, leave me alone, and his wife's over there, and it's showing her going through this litany. What's he mad about? What's wrong? What is wrong? Did he not like supper? Is it still upset about this? Is he, maybe he's thinking of another woman. Maybe he's going on and on and on with this litany that the enemy will feed us about ourselves, all based on because of how we feel about ourselves. And she's going on and on and on. And then it shows the husband, he's going, I can't make up my mind if I want to play golf tomorrow or if I want, the perception is totally, totally different than what she perceived. And then what happens is one of two things. Either she doesn't say anything and ends up thinking that he's mad at her, which affects their next day and all that, or she jumps him. What the heck is the matter? Well, why are you so mad? Why are you angry? Well, he's just sitting there going, well, there wasn't anything wrong till 10 seconds ago, I just feel attacked. And it's all because of how we think about ourselves. It's all because of our insecurity. And like Mark Marshall was saying yesterday, the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing God did in me is I'm starting to like myself. Maybe even love myself a little. And because of that, I can get up here and I can love you guys properly. And it puts this huge, deep desire in me for you guys to allow and to embrace the process that God absolutely will put you through to get you to the point where you don't feel that way about yourself. And you can't even have a whole healthy relationship with yourself, with anybody else, or even with God himself. Because you'll see God as somebody cruel if you blame him for all your insecurities. And this isn't really going the way I wanted it to, because I really didn't organize it at all. Pardon me? Oh, maybe. But you heard Mark say it yesterday. It's such a gift when you can begin to see yourself through God's eyes as perfect. I've pondered this, and I want to be careful what I say here, because this is not something I believe. It's just something I've pondered before. Some of the scariest words in the Bible is "Be gone from me, I never knew you." And I've pondered before what that means, because that's scary. And sometimes what I've thought maybe it means is, I created you like this, unique and perfect for this plan, this work that you have, this life, this Zoe life of peace and freedom and love and kindness and all that. And you spent your entire life trying to be somebody else. Never just being relaxed and being who I created you to be. Like Pastor says, a squirrel don't worry about, because it's a squirrel, it just runs and plays and jumps and does what it does. It's so carefree. Do what? Yellow. Sorry.
Uh,
We stress so much about trying to hide from people or trying to become like somebody else. Oh, sure.
so I've like everybody, I have a very dark past. Unfortunately, I've done a lot of bad things. But that I remember when I first got in recovery and I'm first working through my steps and I'm digging deep into a bunch of trauma and a bunch of things. And that aha moment came for me is when I found that there's value to what I've been through. When I first give my testimony and that crowd of people stands up and there's not a dry eye in the place, and there's people that come up to me and share with me the things that what I had shared had helped them with, that aha moment hit. I was like, oh, it all started to make sense. This is why I went through that.
Right.
This is why it didn't matter anymore who caused what or who did what to me. It didn't matter no more because now I got this testimony and it's all making sense, And one of the things and I wanted to share too, as I'm working my steps and I'm finding out why it is that I want to get high. And you just said something right now that God put it on my mind is, that when we were in the garden, we had no inhibitions and we weren't self-aware and we weren't. That's an imitation that the devil uses when we get high. For that brief second, we go back to the garden, and it's an illusion, though. It's an illusion. Here you go. Here, don't feel nothing.
The apple.
Yeah. Here, you want to, and we get this, and it's so our natural desire is to be with God, and our natural desire is to be what we were made to be in the garden without this guilt and shame. And so it feeds that. So once we get high, our soul's like, oh, but it's just a temporary glimpse of just a piece of what that is, and we chase that. When I had first got sober, I was going through this I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what direction to go to. I could walk outside and go left, right, have no way to go. My mind was chaos. But it was only when I started helping people and getting feedback and seeing results, and I was like, okay, God, I know why this happened now. Now I wouldn't change one bit. I'm going to tell my story to a crowd of people, but the 3 or 4 people it resonates with, that's the purpose. That was the reason. That was the mess behind the message. And but it wasn't until I was able to have that aha moment and have value to the trauma that I've been through, to put value on my past, to say, oh, okay, man, it's worth something. So all that wasn't for nothing. It wasn't a waste of time. And it don't matter why I did it or how it happened, but it already happened and I get to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, when you see, I say it, I want so much to give each one of you what God is beginning and has. I've been doing this for 30 years now, and I'm a lot further along in the process than a lot of you. And looking back through the process, I look at even then how insecure I was through most of that process, feeling like I couldn't measure up, like I did not have the Father's blessing. And that's why it's so wonderful what we're learning here, because we already, He's very well pleased with us. He doesn't care what you've done. You did it based out of a false identity, a lie that got sown into you, strongholds that the enemy built up in you through your parents, through your friends, through life. Because life is hard sometimes. Life's just hard sometimes. And we don't understand it. But just exactly like what you were talking about, Nick, you see Michaela and I up here. We're not just teaching you. We are up here getting healed ourselves. what we're doing here is probably helping us more than it's helping you. Would you agree? Yes, Michaela. Or Mackenzie, I'm sorry.
Something that Mark Marshall said yesterday was that if you find someone you trust, it helps you open up. And like, I've struggled with that for most of my life. I felt all. And like, Michaela, I love you.
Amen.
I want to talk to you about anything, and it helps. Talking to you brings healing to me. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, she's amazing, isn't she? I've said it before. She gets up here and bleeds for you. And what comes out of her is rivers of living water that brings healing, not just to you, but to her also. I've been privileged to be a part of her healing process, and watching it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And even seeing you guys respond to us in the way that you do. I mean, the greatest thing is to be able to really love people, to be secure enough to be able to really love people and then see how they respond and react to that. Because I'm not getting anything for this. Michaela's not getting anything out of this. I'm retired. I should be able to go play golf, but it probably
What
wouldn't
we
be
do
good
get
for her.
is
You
healing.
understand, we don't have to be here. We're here because we love you, and we're here because we want to give you what God has done for us. And it's such a beautiful, just like Mark was saying yesterday, it's priceless. It's the what about the pearl of great price? That sense of peace and love. It makes anything this world has to offer pale so much in comparison. Just to have peace and joy and just get to be a squirrel. That's me, I'm good at that. Just to be who you are and not stress, not try and change yourself. And when you do that, that will change your behavior. You'll quit doing stupid stuff. You'll quit mistreating people. You'll quit perceiving that other people are or you'll see that they are really, and then you'll understand, okay, they've been wounded. They're just wounded. They're just reacting and acting because they don't understand why they do what they do, but they're doing it out of woundedness and brokenness. And so you have compassion instead of anger. You don't get offended. You just want to reach out and hug them, you know? And it just changes it changes every relationship you have. I mean, you guys have heard, I've been married 3 times. The first 2 were disasters. And most of it because of me and my insecurity. So jealous, so insecure, so controlling. Now the relationship I have, I could have never, ever, ever, ever dreamed I would have. Never mind, I won't go there. Try and be healed yourself before you truly try and get into a relationship. It's important. If you don't, you're just adding to the trauma that eventually God will turn around and make beautiful, but you can leave a lot of damage. And you know, if you're trying to get something from somebody else, then you're going into a relationship completely wrong. When you're secure with yourself, when you like yourself, then and only then can you love somebody else in a healthy way. Exactly. What he said was, my happiness is not their responsibility, and that's absolutely right, because nobody can make you happy. I've seen people who have been in a process of dying of cancer over years. And they are happy, upbeat, all the way till they died. Two very good friends, old party buddies, two very good friends. The whole time they were going through this process of the treatments and all this, I'm talking about a period of years. They were upbeat and they were happy. They constantly had a good attitude. They didn't allow life's circumstances to bring them down. I have another friend who just everything is negative. Everything is negative to him. And he constantly thinks that he's sick. He's got every illness there is. He's constantly, I never see him that he's not talking about. And quite honestly, I only associate with him because God brought him in my life. And it's hard sometimes because, quite honestly, sometimes I don't even like him. I mean, he's a buzzkill. I sometimes say that he could suck the joy out of a 5-year-old's birthday party. But God brought him into my life. And through the process of us spending time together, quite a bit of time together, I'm seeing him change. But you know what? God's changing me at the same time. He's using him to change me. Right. That's right. 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 It's exactly right. Anyway, that was just kind of a rabbit trail on the relationships, but it is good advice. I do marriage counseling, and it's very good advice because if you're trying to, how do I say it, make your life complete by using somebody else to do it, usually it won't work. But I'll say this. The way God created us to be, okay, this is a rabbit trail too, but I'm going to go down it anyway because I like hunting rabbits. Anyway, when God created man, Adam, mankind, male and female, he created them. He didn't create Adam and create Eve. He created Adam. Male and female, he created them. They were spirit like God. Then he breathed the breath of life into them. He created them out of the dust. He breathed the breath of life into them. And then he drew the woman from the man. So we have the man and we have the woman, and they're completely different. Together, they are whole. Together, they create a whole person. The problem is when we get in a relationship is, okay, the Bible says, for this reason a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave together with his wife, and the two shall become one. And then usually the fight is, okay, which one of us are we going to become? And that's what causes the problem because of our insecurity, we struggle with the differences that we have in each other instead of embracing the differences that we have and understand that their strength is a weakness of mine that I need. My strength is something that covers their weaknesses. You just saw a couple walk through here that are as different as night is from day. They're absolutely, their personality, and yet they've embraced their differences, and it has made them so strong. Instead of being insecure, And that person has to be just like me, has to think like me, has to agree with me on everything. No, embrace the difference. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. This is a rabbit trail. This is a rabbit trail, but it causes so much problem, and it still goes back to insecurity. Why don't you think like I do? You think I'm dumb? You think I'm stupid? You understand what I'm saying here? That's how you think. Well, you know, you think I'm stupid, and so you don't agree with me. No. Anyway. Find that security within yourself. Then, when you come together, you make a beautiful person, a whole person. Yes, Mackenzie. No. No. I don't believe that at all. No, I don't believe that at all. And I'll say this, because that is the danger of me with that teaching, especially when I'm talking to people who aren't married. No, you don't have to at all, because who is your husband? Who's our husband? Who's my husband?
The Lord.
Who is, that's right. Who's our bridegroom? That's exactly right. We're the bride, he's the groom. He completes us. You absolutely can go the rest of your life single. But I know, I agree, because it's a good thing. For a man to have a wife is a good thing, and it is. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing when it's right. There's nothing lonelier than a bad marriage.
I think one thing I want to say on that one is not to miss what he said in the beginning, is that the two were first spirit. He created them first in spirit, and then he separated them. And it didn't mean that neither one of them was whole without the other. I think that the way that we could look at it is that separated them from one another, so that, I'm just going to say it, maybe I'm wrong, maybe not, I don't know, but is to find out who you are without the other. And why is that? Maybe that's a subject for another day, but I feel like that could go deep for you. Yep, yep. Yep. I think there's also a security in that, because she's somewhere secure and you don't have to worry, what is she doing? What is she, that type of thing. That's where my mind went. Right. Oh, Lord.
Father of her child. I value my job. I love my job. I love being the father of a child. I love being that one person she can count on, whether it be for munchies or money on her phone or whatever it might be, like my family and myself are there for, and I get a lot out of that, But on the other end, we could look at it, if I do, like I said, it also feeds into that codependency where, like, now like when she was on fentanyl, she needed me. She needed me, and I got so much out of it. And then when she got sober, and she started to not need me as more, I took it all so personal, and I've just like, you know, my perception was so toxic. I was just like, nah, I just tried to control her, and I led me to put my hands on her and try to, you know, but really she just didn't need me as more, and I panicked, you know. And now that she's behind bars and she needs me again, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm back, you know. And but yeah, but
So you do understand that you're talking about exactly what I'm talking about. You do understand that, right? You're basically saying, yes, it's your insecurity. It's just your insecurity, and it's what God, if you allow Him to do, will teach you to become, is secure in your own skin. You know what I mean? No matter what color it is, no matter what it looks like, you'll get secure and be just fine with who you are. You guys know Mackenzie and I, we love to take, who wants to, huh? Are you ready? You want something?
No.
Oh,
You said Mackenzie, and she's like,
oh, God.
okay.
That's why none of you ever take it personally if I call you the wrong name, because I've got grandkids that are the light of my life, and I still call them the wrong names sometimes. It's just, I smoked way too much dope when I was a kid, and my memory is really bad. Keep that in mind. It will affect you anyway. And my memory is terrible, especially with names, and I hate calling because I love you guys, and calling you by the wrong name just absolutely is. Wait till I call my grandkids the wrong name. Anyway, we love participation in this class. So who else, is there somebody else that has something they'd like to share?
Yeah, Mark Marshall had the three things. God, God is always who you think He is number one, and He will not influence what He thinks you look. He will not influence what you think He looks like. And number two is influence the way you see yourself. Proverbs 27. The best I could come up with was 9. 27:9. And then learn how people see yourself learn to see yourself like the ones who love you see me. All right, and then number 3, He is not going to influence you to the ones you will forgive. And he also mentioned 2 Samuel 22, and you can pick them all out on that one. That was his base. That's it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's good. He also said, and maybe he hit on that and I missed it, He won't influence the way you see Him, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday when I had heard that, my mom, she also looked at me and she's like, you know, because like my mom's want me to to decipher what he's talking, and I was like, I don't know. Well, let's skip that one because it didn't really resonate. Like, because if God has a big influence on how I feel about Him, you know, just like with people, like I could draw my own first impression of you, but it's your actions and what you do that's gonna influence how I see you. You know, like there's just no way around that. You know, like all the prayers that are answered, all the prayers that aren't answered, all the things in the past almost 10 years now that I've been walking with God has influenced how I see Him. You know, I mean, like you can only make a first impression one time. You know, like, but yeah, that really didn't resonate with me. Maybe I missed it. Maybe that just wasn't for me. But
Mark can get really deep sometimes, and a lot of times you have to take his messages home and chew on them for a while. Honestly, he's amazing. I've been listening to him for years. We've been in a relationship for a long time, and yeah, a lot of times what he shares isn't something that you're just going to flash on. It's something that, and I encourage you to take it and chew on it. Let's see. He won't influence the way you see him. I don't know. I struggle with. I don't know if I struggle with it so much as I don't understand it. I'm not sure I know where he was going with
Can
that.
I chime in?
Sure.
So the way that I took it, because it did resonate with me, was because I've always believed in God, but the way that I knew him was incorrect. And the way that you allow yourself to, it's just like I always use my husband because it's just what we've been through. But the way that I see him influences, like the way that I think about him influences how I believe about him. If I don't believe within myself that he's safe for me, I'm always gonna, like, that influences the relationship that I have. And that's the same way that I believe that it is with God. And I think that that's more kind of what he was talking about, is the way that you allow yourself to believe about God. Like all the trauma that I went through, for years I blamed God, because what kind of God would allow those kind of things? And I carried that, but yet I still believed in God. But how I thought about him, what I believed about him, was wrong. And once God does have an influence on you, that's where you really start changing, is if you believe in that influence and you follow it and you're obedient to it. I think about like the atheist versus the believer. Like an atheist can have influence from God, but if they completely deny that that was God, where's the influence? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
And actually, what immediately comes to my mind is Romans chapter 1. Read through Romans chapter 1. No, Romans chapter 1, where everyone is born, innately knows that there's a God. By his creation, we know that there is a God. And, I always like to say, atheist says, I don't believe in God, therefore there is no God. Well, God says, I don't believe in atheists, therefore there are no atheists. And, so...
Something I want to say that's kind of just to bring it back, and something to really leave you guys with to ponder on. Does anybody struggle with that whenever somebody says that you're, like, see yourself in the image of God, that he created you? Like, is it hard for you to look at yourself and see God within you? Does anybody struggle with that? Yeah. What really helped me was to really study the life of Jesus. Not the miracles that he performed, but what he really went through on earth. It helped me to see that he came to earth just like us. He was born in a manger, not a good situation. Let me not get off track here. No, you're fine. And even though he did good things, there was still people that did bad things to him. He suffered. And his faith remained, though. And even though he knew what was going to happen at the cross, at the end of all of it, he still went through it, and he was faithful, and he was obedient. And it helped me because it helped me to believe that he understands my suffering that I went through, because nobody went through greater suffering than he did. I believe that. But then whenever I look at it deeper, I look at, God, he suffered tremendously. We know that. But then after death, he was put into a dark tomb. It was darkness. He went through darkness even after death. But that darkness was a place for him to heal and to make a great comeback. That's how I look at it. And our life is the same way. It's a spiritual death, not a real death, okay? And after that, like, he was resurrected up, and that's what our life is supposed to be like. You come out of where you were, out of that place where you literally, like, had to die to become something new, and live up to it. And I want to kind of leave you guys with that, to think about how your life really is like how Jesus meant for it to be.
Yeah, and actually, she brought something up that's good. It brought it up to me. What occurred to me is, I mentioned earlier the passage about I never knew you, you know, and maybe that's because we spent our lifetime trying to be somebody who we're not. Maybe it's important, you know, we talk about being born again. Maybe it's important for us to die to who we think we are so that we can become resurrected into who he says we are. Because the only truth, the real truth is what he says we are. And he says we're his children. He says we're his friends. We say we are his bride. Understand that. Understand what he's talking about as his bride. You understand when God talks about knowing us, he uses the exact same word. If you study it and break it down, he uses the exact same word know as he uses when he says a husband shall know his wife. Where the two become one. And I'm not just talking, I'm talking spiritually, metaphorically, physically, not physically, but you understand. I talk about the husband and wife becoming one. That isn't when they take their vows. It's when they consummate a marriage. That's why we could get into soul ties, but we won't. But that when God says he wants to know us, he's talking about that level of intimacy where the two become one. And that's what he thinks of us. And so every day we have to die to ourself, our old self. The Bible talks about that. Well, that old self is who we think about ourselves, how we think. Just like Mark was talking about yesterday, it's the key to change the way you think about yourself. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so shall he be. Mackenzie? That what? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
The words we speak, especially about ourselves, are very, very, very important. Very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I will say, I kind of want to leave it. Man, this went really good. I'm so happy to be back. Recently, you know, the anxiety and the worry and the fear and all of those things, if I would have taken that on, it would have taken me back to that dark place. And I keep going back to the birdcage. Like, is that a place I get to choose if that's a place I want to go back to? It's a place, or I can choose to stay free. But it's my choice, and I can use the tools that I've gained and fight it, overcome it, because that's really what it is. And you know, God did set me free. He set me completely free from that, and that's how I know. Like, now it's a choice. I can go back to that, and and you know, I was very tempted. I wanted to be able to voice how I felt. But before I did that, I also had to discern, is this something that is true? Is it a true worry that I have to have? Is it a true anxiety that I need to, like, do I need to act on this? Or is it just something, like, you have to evaluate it sometimes? Because I feel like if I would have brought up my concerns and my worries, it wouldn't have done anything good for the other person. It would have, I believe, made him feel like, we're back to this? Like, all of it was for nothing. And that is where the enemy, like, I see the bigger picture. That's what the enemy was trying to create. But instead of taking it to my husband and making it his problem, I took it to the Lord and let God deal with me. That is my problem. And I think that that's something that's very important that we need to learn, is to be able to evaluate how we feel and why are we feeling it, what are we thinking on, why. And I will say the hardest part about it is that the enemy, like, my feelings were valid because I've been through some stuff. But it's old stuff. I chose to forgive it. I chose to love. I chose to trust. And just because it's coming back doesn't mean that I have to allow it to come full force and take us both back. I fight it. And that's what we have to do. And the same thing, like, I'm talking anxiety and stuff, but I'm also talking about your choices, like what you decide to run to for comfort, or what you decide to invite in for comfort and for those type of things. So,
Can I,
yeah. Oh, for sure. The devil's pawn. That's what I call them.
I was going to say something, Michaela, and this is for you.
Okay.
This is a big breakthrough that I had, because I talked about how I'd been married twice before. I was insecure, controlling. I didn't like myself. I thought eventually this woman is going to learn who I really am, and she's going to find somebody else. So I was constantly trying to control the situation to make sure that that didn't happen. And I worked so hard at getting her to love me the way I needed her to love me, needed her to love me. And the truth is, even when I married Connie, and I'd been a Christian for, we've been together for 20 years. I'd been a Christian for 10 years when I met and married Connie, and was a way different person than I was the first two times. And I'd come a long ways in my process of what we trying to teach, of learning to, but I still was insecure with her. The old habits still came back. And Connie is a beautiful woman, and she's always attracted attention everywhere she's gone from men. She's a little older now, but she's still a beautiful woman. But I finally had to come up with an aha moment, which is, I can't make her love me. All I can do is be the kind of person that she wants to love. And so I went to work on myself, on being the best husband I could be, serving her, being a godly man, serving her and putting her needs ahead of mine and loving her children as much or more than she, and not more, as much as she does. Every person that she loved, I chose to love and treat like they were my very own family. Her children love and respect me, honestly, more than they do their own father. And I made myself somebody that could be so lovable that I don't have to worry. And they respond to that. A woman will just respond to that when they see, because a woman's greatest need is security. When they see that their husband that they don't have to worry about me, then they just fall into the role as a wife. And anyway, my breakthrough was understanding that I could not make her love me.
Yeah.
All I could do was make myself a lovable person.
And that's something that I did do. Because I do try to control. Like, when he's on the road, he joins a gym, he does, different things, and that automatically was like deep insecurity because it's happened. But who am I to condemn him for somebody who, I'm not here to condemn anybody. And I have to trust that he's different. And if he proves me wrong, the only thing that I can do is not repeat the same old patterns. It's to know how I'm going to react to it different. And that's where I find my security, is within myself, knowing that if that does really happen, know what I'm going to do about it. Am I going to do it the same way that I used to, let myself completely fall apart? Am I going to chase and beg and cry and all this stuff? Yeah, I'll probably cry because I'd be really hurt. But I would just be done. Like, that's the thing. You just have to know. Yeah, no matter what. And that's the most important part, is like looking through my entire life and knowing that no matter what choices I made, no matter what things happened to me, God never failed me. And he's not going to start now.
And he works it all together
Yeah.
for the good of those who love him.
Unfortunately, I do have to go to work and you guys have to go. So